So I was doing some research as usual, and it's something I wanted to show y'all. But for those who don't know, I'm a mix of different tribes due to evasion. I'm mostly Creek Indian, even though we had our own names for our different tribes. The European invaders called us Creek because they was too lazy to pronounce our names, and we lived near creeks, so they just lumped us all as one. But one thing that stuck out to me was I kept finding some of my ancestors being located in Indian Pike, Alabama in the early 1800s. I want everyone to keep in mind that they reclassified our people if we didn't go out west and we remained in our land or just moved to another town or city. Also, keep in mind that these European invaders came in our lands. We already had vast cities and towns established. But you know what they did? They burnt and drowned a lot of them to erase the history, then reconstruct their own. Another thing to keep in mind that a lot of our people wasn't slaves, and to find out if they were, you can do your genealogy. Those records still exist. Let's get two things clear though. Some of them people that were enslaved as prisoners of war, POWs. Others were employed as low-paid workers, and some actually worked for their family. Because we own land and so-called slaves too. Remember, it wasn't only so-called Indians or Negro slaves, but it was so-called white ones too. Alright, before I show you what I came to share, I'm trying to paint this picture for you right quick. Now, my tribes were always described as the way we still look today. This is a painting of the Yuchi Indians right here. Listen to this Yuchi Indian chief Langley speak. The Yuchi is one of my people's neighboring tribes.
Why is it that black folks are always talking about black? Where? Do you know what tribe you descend from? My tribes don't descend from Africa. They descend from right here in the Savannah River. Yuchi, over 1,000 years. That's who we are. Through slavery, we're still here. Jim Crow, we're still here. The 50s and 60s, civil rights, we're still here. And we are here today. Yuchi. That's who we were. That's who we are. That's who we've been. That's who we continue to be. That's who I am today. I am a Yuchi Indian. Whether you want to call me a Yuchi Indian or Yuchi American Indian or Amerindian, I am Yuchi. Tahola, children of the sun. This is who I am in the Savannah River Valley where my people have been for over 1,000 years. We're here. We didn't go to Oklahoma. We stayed and fought. Many of my ancestors have died. We're still here. I still have my practices. We know who we are. This is who we are. So you can call me colored, you can call me Negro, you can call me black. I am a Yuchi Indian.
Alright, now that y'all heard Chief Langley's powerful message, I want y'all to check this out with me. So, American Indians in Alabama. Alabama's indigenous history can be traced back more than 10,000 years to the Paleo-Indian period. Cultural and technological developments brought changes to the societies that inhabited what is now Alabama, with the most visible evidence of those changes being the remarkable earthen mounds built by the Mississippian people throughout the Southeast, in Alabama most notably at Moundville. By the time European fortune tellers and colonist explorers arrived in the 16th century, the Indian groups in the Southeast had coalesced into cultural groups known from the historic period. The Cherokees, Choctaws, Creeks, and Chickasaws had smaller groups such as the Alabama Coushatta and the Uchis. More Europeans and then U.S. settlers flooded into the Southeast. These people were subjugated to the continual assaults on their land, warfare, the spread of non-native diseases, and the exploration of their resources. In the 1830s, that was when the Indian Removal Act, they saying the majority of Native Americans, we not Native Americans, we American Indians in Alabama was forced off their land to make way for cotton and plantations and European American expansion. But keep in mind, I got genealogical records for some of my ancestors being in Alabama as early as 1804, shit like that. Before I read you a part of this next article real quick, I wanted you to keep in mind that the Creek Wars were from the years of 1812 to 1814, and even another one in 1836. But after 1812, they were able to start actually really expanding their colonization, for lack of better words. Almost no cotton was grown in the United States in 1790 when the first U.S. census was conducted. Following the War of 1812, which was the beginning of the Creek War, cotton became the key cash crop of the Southern economy and the most important American commodity. I hope y'all connecting the dots as I go along. At the beginning of the video, I did tell you I'm a mix of different tribes. Besides the different Creek tribes that I descend from, another one of my tribes is the Seminole or the Seminole, who are really a part of the Creek Indians, which are part of the Yamasee Nation. Before the Creek, there was the Yamasee. I want y'all to hear what Osceola of the Seminole had to say. But remember, Seminole or Seminole can be translated two ways. The Seminole was really comprised of various tribes that were trying to escape slavery. So the Spaniards call us Cimarron, which means wild runaway. Or there's a Creek word that's less likely the meaning, which is Isha Samoli, meaning the people whom the sun god does not love, outcast or wanderer. But we know the great creator or the Most High loves us because the Seminole didn't lose one war to the invaders. We're still here, even though some of us did have to relocate to several places, including Mexico. Listen to this though. The Seminoles refused to sanction this proceeding of a few of their chiefs. The delegation themselves denied their own act and declared that they had not signed any paper which required them to relinquish their lands or remove from Florida. They were assured that they would nevertheless be forced to carry out the treaty. Micanopy, and old and inert, was a little more than a tool in the hands of the bold and crafty half-breed, Dodge the Hijack. Osceola, who though not a chief himself, exerted a controlling influence. The Indians resolved to negotiate time to place their wives and children in the safety and secure their crops and lay in ammunition, but in no case to leave the country. They showed themselves adept in the arts of diplomacy, succeeded in putting off any decided action until the spring of 1835. A council was then held. Osceola and 8 others agreed to abide by the treaty, and the opening of next year was fixed upon the time when the removal should commence. Micanopy, Sam Jones, and 3 other leading chiefs refused to agree to this. General Thompson, the Indian agent, therefore struck their names off the rolls of chiefs, declaring them no longer counselors of the nation. Nothing was farther from the intention of Osceola than to fulfill his agreement to immigrate. He wished to gain time, and above all things, by display of friendship, to procure arms, powder, and lead. Thompson refused to sell these. Osceola, for a moment forgetting himself, broke out into a fierce passion. "Am I a Negro?" he said. "A slave? I am an Indian. The white man shall not make me black. I will make the white man red with blood, and then blacken him in the sun and rain, where the wolf shall smell his bones and the vulture live upon his flesh." He abused the agent and defied the power of the government and was put into irons. This here is when Osceola was being put in irons, aka chains or handcuffs. But y'all heard what he said, right? He said, don't let them make us black, and don't let them make us a slave. We are Indians. Now that was about some Indians that was in Florida, right? Well, here goes some more, and I'll be back.
So looking at this map, on the map that they claim said to America, now that we know it doesn't say that, if we look at it, we can look at the culture of the people and see who is really there. So this says Ocala. Now this is Ocala, Florida, and this is talking about the Ocala, but it says that the Ocala division of Seminoles descend from the Yamasee. But they can't be Seminole if the Ocala were already in existence before the Seminoles. But we know that they're Yamasee. But how? It says betray their origin by the dark color of the skin. This is found in the book Black People Are Indigenous to Americas. This is also seen where they were considered Negroes by being carried away, and they also were called slaves or captives of the Seminoles, but we know they were not. Now in the previous, you'll see daughters of the sun. This is the same term used for the Tosuyaha, but right here is where one of the originals, it says the Ocala tribe of Seminoles are thought to be descendants of the Yamasees, as they are blacker than the other tribes, and the Yamasees are said to have been remarkably dark complexion. And it goes down and shows where a chief, he actually, it says, bore strong marks of his dark skin, let him know that his ancestors were Yamasee, where they knew because of his dark skin. Now, these particular Yamasee, the Morgaricacans, this is where the word American comes. So it says the earliest appearance of a variant of the name of Morgaricacan and the land that eventually became the United States is recorded by the Spanish in 1680 as Amacracy, a tribal name contained in the name of the Florida mission, El Nombre de Dios de Amacracy, which was acknowledged as a Yamasee town located in the Tumakua province of La Florida. Swanson applied the name Amacracy as the original name of the Yamacraw, and the abbreviated form of the name Yamasee appears in South Carolina records as Yamasee. So this word, the Americans, we know that that could also be the Amorgaricacans. And they're talking about the Yamasee. Now, this guy, he was like, oh, well, these lands were called Mayaka. You don't know what you're talking about. But this is where he gets it from. He gets it from, again, Augustin Lee Plungent, who was talking about the land of Mu, and he called Mu Atlantis. Here we go. Queen of Mu went to Egypt. Her brothers worshipped in Egypt. This is ridiculous. But now, I have a book called The Yamasee Indians from Florida to South Carolina. In the index, you see Yamasee towns. Now, one of those towns is actually Mayaka. So I'm going to show you where this actually, where it comes from. So here is talking about the Mayaka. And what we're going to do is we're going to find out what Indians were actually in the town Mayaka. And so here we have Fray Juan Constamo, a friend of the friar who had carried off the bells, volunteered some years later that the Yamasee of Mayaka were an indomitable, unreasonable nation who would not settle down and plant, and that Fray Bartholomew had made himself sick trying to chase them down. But if someone is running away, that would make them Seminole, right? That's a bone. But you're trying to chase these people down to plant, but these things naturally grow for them. You say that they eat grass and weeds and roots, but these things naturally grow from them. For them, you wanted to make them slaves, but you couldn't, so you considered them indomitable, unreasonable. But one thing they didn't call them, one thing they did call them also was a nation. This was a nation of people there. There you go again, Mayaka. So even when the Tumakuas actually were sent down to go against rebels of Mayaka, but it wasn't the Yamasee, but later occupants. So the Yamasee were already there. So when we're talking about Mayaka, when we talk about Ocala or the Ocala, their ancestors were there and they're still here today.
I want to end it with this, right? When you hear people say that we didn't fight back, that only means they don't know our story, which is vast and complex. But our people was always fighting, like the Yamasee War of 1715 to 1717, the Gullah Geechee War of 1739 to 1858, the Oconee War of 1780s to the 1790s, the Creek with the Yuchi joining the Red Sticks, and from the War of 1812 to 1814, and another one in 1836 with the Creek Indians. Then you have the Seminole Wars, or the Seminole Wars, from 1816 to 1858, and the Miccosukee War of 1818. And that's just to name a few. So we was always fighting, but in almost every one of those wars, we had other Indians fighting against us in support of the invaders. So let's continue to build with each other, but know it's some of our own that we're gonna have to leave alone or with their head gone. Cause all skin folk ain't kin folk. As long as the rest of us, love, build, and fight for each other, no force can stop us. Peace, love, and power to my people.
Smoking Sessions with Chief Pressure.